All right, when you think about Christmas creatures, you're probably picturing reindeer, maybe a few elves, right? But what if I told you there's a much darker, way more chaotic side to all that holiday folklore? Today, we are definitely pulling back that curtain.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say for most of you, that's a big no. And that's exactly what we're here to fix. Because for centuries in certain parts of the world, Christmas wasn't just about good cheer. It was about surviving a nightly invasion of these nasty little monsters.
So, let's meet them. They're called the Kalikenzaroi. That's the plural. And trust me, they almost never travel alone. These are the creatures at the very heart of our story today. The stars of a legend that is as terrifying as it is absolutely fascinating. So, who are these guys anyway? Well, the first thing you have to know is that they work on a super tight schedule. They don't just pop up whenever they want. No, they are strictly holiday-themed menaces. That's right, just 12 days. This little window of time from Christmas to Epiphany was traditionally called the unbaptized days. The idea was, because Christ hadn't been baptized yet, the world's waters were, let's say, unsanctified, and the world was vulnerable. This was their cue to swarm to the surface and cause all kinds of trouble. Now, you might be thinking their only goal is to, ruin your Christmas party. But that's just their side gig. For the other 353 days of the year, they have a much, much bigger goal. We're talking apocalyptic level stuff. And this is where their cosmic frustration comes in. All year long, they live deep underground, and what are they doing? They're sawing away at the trunk of the world tree. The giant pillar that holds up the entire planet. And they get so close to finishing the job, but then Christmas arrives. They have to drop everything to go topside for their 12-day party, which ironically is just enough time for the world tree to completely heal itself. So when they get back, they have to start all over again. Talk about a tough job.
So the good news is, the world is safe for another year. The bad news, you're not. Once they're on the surface, their focus shifts from destroying the cosmos to destroying your home. And this is where the stories get really personal and really creepy.
One of the most unsettling things about the Kalikenzaroi is that nobody could really agree on what they looked like. The descriptions are all over the place. Usually they're small, black, hairy little things with burning red eyes, but then you get all these weird animal parts. Goat feet, donkey ears, long monkey arms. Sometimes they're lame or missing an eye. It just makes them that much more unpredictable and terrifying. So once these little nightmares get inside your house, and they can slip through keyholes and chimneys, by the way, what's on their to-do list? Oh, just pure mayhem. They'll flip over all your furniture, devour your Christmas dinner, and, well, urinate on anything they don't eat. They'll scatter flour everywhere and basically just terrorize the family until the sun comes up. And let's be really clear, people didn't see this as just some harmless mischief. As the folklorist Clement A. Miles put it way back in 1902, their actions were seen as genuinely evil. They were these little agents of chaos, just driven by greed and a pure desire to wreck the peace and quiet of a Christmas home.
Okay, so things sound pretty bleak, right? You've got these world-ending goblins trying to get in your house and pee in your wine. What do? Well, luckily, centuries of tradition have basically created a pretty solid goblin survival guide.
You basically have two strategies here: repel them or appease them. If you want to scare them off, you could paint a black cross on your door. They hate fire, so keeping a Yule log burning all 12 nights was a big one. Some people even burned smelly shoes. Apparently the stench drove them away. Or you could try to bribe them. Leave out some sweets, hang some sausages in the chimney, a little peace offering to keep them moving.
But what if you wanted a cleverer trick? What if you could exploit a fundamental, almost comical weakness? Well, according to the lore, the Kalikenzaroi have a critical flaw. They can't count past the number 2.
And this brings us to my absolute favorite part of this whole story, the colander trick. You just leave a strainer or a sieve on your doorstep. The goblin would show up and be totally compelled to count all the little holes. It would start 1, 2. But because 3 is a holy number representing the Trinity, they literally couldn't say it. So it would get frustrated, start over, 1, 2, and get stuck in this loop all night long until sunrise, when it had to flee. Brilliant, right?
But the folklore gets darker. It's not just about protecting your stuff. It taps into a much deeper, more human fear. What happens if the timing of your child's birth falls within this dangerous, unbaptized period?
The belief was that a child born during these 12 days was at a super high risk of transforming into one of these creatures themselves, and the cures to prevent this were pretty extreme. We're talking about wrapping the newborn in garlic and straw, or even holding the baby's feet to a fire just long enough to singe their toenails. It's shocking, but it really shows you how seriously people took this threat.
Now, while we've been focusing on the Greek version, this creature is kind of a regional superstar of dread. The myth of a goblin-like monster that's active during the 12 days of Christmas pops up all across the Balkans, and even into Turkey.
This table really breaks it down nicely. In Turkey, you've got the karakonkolos, who asks you weird riddles, and you have to use the word black in your answer to survive. In Bulgaria, the karakonjol is a shapeshifter that will literally ride on people's backs until they collapse. And in Serbia, the karakonjula specifically goes after naughty kids. You can see how each culture kind of twisted the myth to fit its own veers.
So, with a history this terrifying, how in the world did the Kalakanzaroi survive into the modern age? Simple. They evolved. The creature's role in the culture has changed so dramatically over time, from a genuine object of fear to, well, something else entirely. You can literally watch it happen through history. The myth probably started with ancient pagan traditions tied to the winter solstice, the darkest time of year. Then, in the medieval period, it became this tool of folkloric terror, a way to scare kids into behaving and keep people safely indoors. But by the 20th century, the terror started to soften into just mischief, and today, they're basically cultural mascots.
They've been in an episode of the TV show Grimm, and they show up in all sorts of modern Greek children's books. All those terrifying traits, the waste, the destruction, the threat of your baby turning into one, they've all been sanded down into cute, family-friendly holiday chaos.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. The Kalakanzaroi went from being a genuine demon to a Christmas goblin mascot. And it really makes you wonder, what other strange, terrifying, and forgotten monsters are lurking in the shadows of our own holiday traditions, just waiting for someone to rediscover them?